In any life, we have highs and lows, light and dark, wins and losses. What happens when we encounter that moment in time when what happens next could change everything? Join us as we step into another person's inspirational moment and see how we can connect their experience to ours. This is Greg Stevens, and you're listening to A Shot of Inspiration. Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Stevens, and welcome to another episode of A Shot of Inspiration. I'm here today with Tyler Jorgenson, and Tyler's someone I met recently, and we have had several great conversations, and he's a true entrepreneur. And I forgot to mention my sidekick, Finley, who's already crashed out, but I love having her on the show. She's asleep right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and pop her in the other room. So Finley, we'll see you after the show's over. So Tyler, thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me out.
Great. If you don't know, if you're watching, Tyler's been around a while. He's had a podcast. He's had many different businesses. And as you can tell, he's got one of the coolest backgrounds I've seen. Tyler, tell us a little about yourself and how many businesses you've begun and really kind of what turns you on today. Because I know after doing maybe a podcast for many years and doing some other things, you've got a lot of plates spinning. So let's go from where you were to today and what turned you on today.
All right, that's a big question, right? So there was like three questions within that one. But so we'll start at the beginning. I think I've been an entrepreneur since I was born. When I was 5 years old, I didn't get allowance, but I did like candy. And so I wanted to go to the local store and get some candy with my sisters, but we didn't have any money. So I would pick flowers from the neighbor's front yard, wrap them up nice, and then I would go and sell them to her. So I would just go knocking on doors and selling. I was 5 years old, just finding ways to make money. And I remember later on, I realized, man, if I don't have flowers, what else could I do? And what if I didn't even have to go to the store? So middle of July, I'd knock on a door just in my normal clothes. Old lady would answer, and I'd just say, trick or treat. And they would think it was the funniest thing that ever happened. And they would just go get me whatever treats and candy they had in their house. So I just found like there's always creative ways to solve problems. And that's just how I saw the world from an early age. My first business that was like an actual company, I was selling snowboards and skis to college students while I was wrestling in college. I couldn't do a normal job, but I wanted to make a decent amount of money. So I did that and then ended up, I was like 21, 22 years old. I bought a restaurant and did that for a little while. I owned a mortgage company and a real estate company. And then, man, I've done so many different things. We'll unpack that a little bit more later. But what's really getting me excited these days, after having my show for 15 years on ABC News and on podcasts and YouTube and everything, I realized I love helping other people do the same. And so we help seven-figure founders step out of the shadows and into the spotlight and own their own show. And we do that through our media production company, Bern Media.
So tell us more about Bern Media. What specifically do you do for those seven-figure people?
Yeah, so we work with people who have more money than time, but they know that they need to stop hiding. And so a lot of times they're either introverts or they're just people who haven't taken their personal brand seriously. So we help them establish their personal brand and own a show that where they can stand as the expert that they are in their niche and either attract ideal customers or expand their personal network.
So what lights you up about that most? You get to showcase them probably in a way. I know when I had a branding agent, they brought out in me something that I normally wouldn't say, but it was there. And it really lit me up. I went to tears when my branding agent actually worked through that with me. And it was all the things I couldn't say or didn't feel comfortable saying. And I could tell she got a ton out of it as well. But what is it for you? What lights you up around doing that work with them?
A lot of people struggle when they feel like they're self-promoting. And you have the small, loud minority, which is that they're out there talking about themselves all the time, even if they shouldn't. But the vast majority of people struggle to talk about their accomplishments and their success and what they're doing. And so I love helping people own that and own their show, own what makes them unique. If they want to turn that into an interview show or if they just want to do their own, share their own content, we just help them get comfortable really owning who they already are. They've already earned the credibility, they've already earned the success, but they haven't presented it to the world and shared it with the world. So I love helping them own that. We have one client who does such a good job of that now guests pay to be on their show. And so they went from being just having a show and struggling to do that to, man, their audience wants to be featured so badly, they're willing to pay for it. And I just love that transition.
That's great. What is the biggest barrier? Let's talk about not for you, but when you're helping clients remove some barriers for themselves. And then we'll talk about you in a minute. So, what are some of the biggest barriers you help clients remove for themselves?
People struggle with perfectionism a lot, and they really struggle when they get onto a camera. I didn't listen to my own radio show for probably 5 years. Man, hearing myself talk, even just right now, I heard myself stutter and say a couple of times, and getting so caught up in that, we're so hypercritical of ourselves. And so helping people realize, hey, this is just how we communicate. This is how it works. If you listen to other people's shows, they're doing all those things too. The difference is they're doing it and you're not. And I love helping people just step into that. And one of the things that we have to help them recognize is that it's okay to be imperfect. In fact, your audience wants that. If you're coming off overly polished and overly perfect, it doesn't resonate with people. It feels overly scripted and too perfect. It doesn't feel human. And podcasts and YouTube and shows are about connecting with people one-on-one. One of the ways that we do that is if they're struggling to just turn on the camera and record, either myself or one of our team members shows up with them and we interview them and we guide them, because then they're talking to somebody directly instead of just into an empty camera.
Do you run into clients where they put the cart before the horse, that they need to shift the priorities and what they're doing?
Yeah, sure. I think understanding the why is a big thing. If you don't have an intention behind the show, it's a big deal. Like you're missing something. And if you're looking for, I want to make a massive return on investment, it's doable, but you have to make sure the systems are working behind the show. The show is just simply a media piece. And so are you driving leads to an opt-in form and are you going to send them through that way? Are you driving into a high ticket offer? And all of those things around somebody's business have to make sense. If they know their business, then we can help them position the show in a way that just simply helps them elevate that more.
So how did you get started on the mark with getting in front of a camera, putting a mic in front of you? I remember a little something about that. Share with the people how you got into doing this.
My show was a complete accident. I owned a supplement company at the time that we were trying to scale and move as fast as possible. So I was contacting stations, radio stations, to buy what they call remnant ads. So at any given day, radio stations, cable stations, all these things have ads that they haven't sold, ad slots. So they'll either just throw in an existing advertiser as a bonus, or they'll put in one of their own ads, or they'll have to do something. And so a lot of times you can buy those remnant spots at a massive discount. So I was contacting shows looking for remnant spots. And I ended up on the phone with the CEO of a local, this was an NBC News affiliate. And I was talking with him about what I was doing. And he started asking me follow-up questions about why I would be doing this. And I told him about how I had started this supplement company. I was scaling it, and he was a really good conversation. So he's asking up why. And I was telling him I had just lost everything in the recession. So I rebuilt this new company. And he was like, this is all great, but I think you should just have a show. So he threw me on air that day to be a guest on somebody else who was live on the radio. And 2 weeks later, I had my own show. And for the most part, I've kept it going all the way since then, 15 years ago.
That's amazing. So let's go back to the crash you were talking about. What happened there? And I know you talk a little about this, but I want to touch on that, because anytime something I find inspirational is when we hit a wall and it doesn't look like it's going to work out, and then we get on the other side. And it typically is one of our most powerful breakthroughs when we see that. So what was that for you?
So the crash for me was the 2008 Great Recession. And for a long time, it was so recent for everyone that I'd bring it up and they would all say, ah, yes. But now we have an entire generation of business people that didn't experience it. They were kids, or it's been a long time. We're old now. But when the recession hit, I was triple invested in real estate. I owned multiple properties. I had a real estate company and I had a finance company doing mortgages and things like that. And I had a lot of partners and team members, and so we weren't able to really adapt quickly. For the first part of the recession, we did, and we grew. We actually were starting to scale, and we grew while a lot of other people were shrinking. And then it just couldn't hold up any longer. I had some partnership issues and some other things happen all simultaneously. And I was left through a series of unfortunate events with negative $17,000 in my bank account. And I remember as I was heading to the doctor to find out for an ultrasound, to find out what my youngest was going to be, was it going to be a boy or a girl? I checked that bank that morning and I saw negative. And I had a few bucks left in a PayPal account that I had to use to put gas in the minivan, and I was out. I had less than zero. And that's what I had to rebuild from. And so I realized in that stage, well, I needed to close some of the deals in the current business that I had. I didn't want to build a business that was so dependent upon me, so dependent upon team members, so dependent upon all those things. I wanted to have more control, more time freedom, because I was about to have my fourth and I had four young kids. I wanted to enjoy their life. I wanted to be a part of it. I ended up getting out of the hole, closing down the bank account so that it would stop bleeding. I ended up having to file bankruptcy to stop additional creditors from coming after. These were all business creditors, but they think they got to go after the person. Even though I had business partners, everyone was coming after me. And so I finally just said, hey, it's time to put a stop this and go forward. And it was a hard decision. But I ended up building a supplement company that went international, sold millions of dollars in product, and got me to be able to live a lifestyle that I wanted to live while I raised my kids.
How long did that take you from the crash till you launched nationally, internationally, and got to where you were, let's say, comfortable getting out of the hole again?
Yeah, it took probably a year of trying different things, right? So from recognizing there was a problem to trying the first business I launched didn't take off in this kind of new model. It made a couple bucks, but it didn't, do anything. Once I found the supplement that I wanted to sell, I built that website overnight, launched some ads and went to sleep. And when I woke up the next morning, I'd made 200 bucks. I was like, okay, I got something here. And so the first 30 days from that point to the end, I had replaced my income. It made enough money to live on. And it made enough money every month after for years. But it took me a little while to get to that overnight success.
Yeah. What doubts did you have when that was coming on? I think I would be scared to death because four kids
Yeah.
and all of that. I've been broke, but I haven't had it with four kids and a wife all at the same time. It probably was a motivator at one level, but also it was some level of burden. How did you balance that and figure it out?
I have a extremely high tolerance to discomfort and risk, and that's not always great when you have other people depending on you. Now, I know that I can always find a way to put food on the table, and I know that there was always going to be basic things to solve. It was tougher on my kid's mom for sure than it was for me, and it definitely put a strain on things, but I didn't have doubt. I didn't I had no doubt that I would be able to make money or do something. It was just going to be different. And I didn't doubt that it would work. It was a matter of when it would work. And so there was a good year to 2 years where it was really tough. And when you go through something that dark, it doesn't just go away the next that when you finally make money. There's a lot of other things you got to fix. But for me, it was never a doubt. It was just a matter of when.
Yeah. Now, how old's your youngest now?
15.
15. So did they take the entrepreneurial spirit like you? Have they been picking flowers and going out
So
there?
it's interesting when you're raised by an entrepreneur. I feel like sometimes you just think that things solve themselves, right? So I have a 20-year-old, two 18-year-olds, and a 15-year-old, and they're just starting to see the world more entrepreneurial and to do it that way. Now, here's the thing, they do think entrepreneurially. They see solutions where other people see problems. They just haven't had to solve the business stuff yet because dad took care of them for a lot of things. But now they're starting to. And they're all very creative. They're musicians and scientists and all kinds of stuff. And so I think the spirit of entrepreneurship is there. None of them have pursued a business yet.
So are you musical or they picked some of that up after you or share a little about that?
Yeah, I guess it skips a generation. My dad was a professional musician. I love music. I sang in choirs and stuff like that. I was never really a lead singer. I wrote poetry and things when I was younger, but I never got into playing and doing my own stuff. And three of my four kids have been in their own bands and played together and done stuff. And I just think it's really cool. But I guess they got it from grandpa, not me.
It's interesting. I have a friend of mine, on either side, there's no musicians in either his wife's or his family, and his kids are so uh, advanced in the music area. For someone whose family isn't that, it's such a treat for him. And I'm sure getting to see them play just probably makes your heart sing.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, my daughter just dropped a new song today on Instagram. I woke up to her having a new song out there, and it was an awesome way to start the day.
Oh, that's awesome. Can you share it with everyone?
Oh man, yeah. Let me see what her music
Yeah,
account is, though. Yeah,
I
let me
love
see.
that.
She dropped it on Instagram, and it's Tay Marie _ music. So she does alternative folk music, and it's pretty awesome. She just does some cool stuff. She's just getting started.
How do I spell that? Tan Marie?
Tay Marie, Tay
Wow,
Marie.
great. No, I want to put that out there. That's awesome. So
Yeah.
does she just sing or does she play an instrument as well?
Yep, she plays guitar. She taught herself. She taught herself guitar in about a week. She was originally singing with a group and they were going to be playing House of Blues in a month. And she's like, I want to play guitar. And so she got real focused and taught herself guitar in that month and played it on stage at House of Blues.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so good. No,
All,
that's
all of my kids have this ability that once they decide they want to do something, they're going to figure it out. Now, if I try to get them to do something, that's a whole different story. So I don't really, but that's not my style. I don't try to push. I'm a supporter, not a steerer.
absolutely, absolutely. Now, that's a question I have. When the crash kind of went on, did the kids sense anything were they just, is it something?
They were all so young, right? And
Yeah.
at that point, they were between not yet born and four. And so I had twins and a 2 year old. Yeah. When my oldest was two, we had twins. And then about 3 years later, I had my youngest. They were all five and under. And so, no, they didn't really know. And by the time they were conscious of things were more already better. But they've experienced the ups and downs of entrepreneurship where some months we're doing trips to the Caribbean and other months I'm like, hang tight. I don't know what we're going to do yet. Cash flow doesn't always come at the same pace.
Exactly.
But I think for the most part, they lived a pretty comfortable life.
That's great. I know as an entrepreneur, no one makes it alone. Who are a couple of people who really have been there for you and how have they been there for you? I always like to make sure we acknowledge the people in our lives who support us. Sometimes it's listening to us, sometimes it's many other ways. Who are a couple of those people?
Yeah, there's everything from digital mentors, right? People like Tim Ferriss that took the time to write the book, The 4 Hour Workweek, that changed the way I looked at operating companies.
Yeah.
Russell Brunson, who taught funnels and marketing in a simplified framework with good stories that made it easy to understand. Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that was the first book that really helped me out. What's cool is I've since worked or had either worked with each of those people or had them on my show or spoken for them. And it's just so cool how the world brings us all together. But then people in more directly, I've got a best friend that's been my friend since I was a kid who doesn't understand this world, but is always willing to let me talk about the latest pivot and the thing that I'm doing. I've got great parents who, same thing. They aren't entrepreneurs, but they love just, I can call and vent. And then I have a sister who's been an amazing rock. She worked for me for a little while, knew that she didn't like working for entrepreneurs, but because she understands the world a little bit and can listen to me. But man, I'll tell you, it's really all of those people that you cross paths with, that the universe brings to you at any given time, that help you in moments you don't even expect, because it takes constant nourishment and energy to keep pushing when things, even when things are good, it takes energy.
Absolutely. Tell me of a story, maybe of a guest that you had on that you didn't know and that showed up. It was like, wow, that was that divine intervention that this person showed up on my show and it took care of something. Do you have one of those?
Yeah, I'm thinking through it a little bit. if you're listening, you won't be able to see this, but for those that are watching, so go check it out on YouTube or wherever Greg publishes it.
Yeah.
I've kept like physical written journals for every guest. And I used to write in my journal and a lot more. And now most things have gone digital. I use a Remarkable tablet, but for the shows, I still keep it. And so like I have all the original notes from each guest that comes on. Like my buddy Alex Hormozy was on the show. I'm just literally clicking through and seeing all these different people. And I think of all of them that came on that really impacted me in an unexpected way, there's been a couple. So Stephen Key, he's the author of a book called One Simple Idea. It talks about licensing. And he was one of the people that, so basically everyone that Tim Ferriss mentioned in 4 Hour Week, I would go and try to find the people that he referenced and interview them. And then Tim Ferriss ended up reaching out and to his team asked for him to come out on the show. So that was really cool. But Stephen Key was amazing. Alex Hormozy always just brings amazing information and fire when he shares stuff. And then, but I think probably the most unexpected was Travis Chambers. He had launched and sold a media company that I watched happen. And I knew when he was small and I saw him hit success and then I saw him exit. Now he's doing stuff in really cool experiential hotels. And it impacted me only just because he shared real examples of what to do and like, hey, do this next. And I'm such a practical guy. Don't speak to me in theories and concept. Tell me the exact thing what to do. And then I'll figure out the story that connects. But there's been so many. I've had over 500 guests and it's been really cool.
I love that. I love the experience of getting to meet some of your people you admire, somewhat heroes like Timothy Ferriss and things like that. He's been on my shelf for years, and I love that you've been able to do that. I think if it is long enough when you're doing what you love, some of those things you get to meet some of the people that have paved the way that you never get to. So, taking a different direction, what are some of the things you like to do when you're not being an entrepreneur and doing that? What gets you excited outside of the business world?
Man, that's tough. Actually, it's not. So there's only a few things that I truly like love doing outside of business ideation and things. That's just how I see the world. So for me, doing business stuff isn't like work. Yeah. There's the admin stuff. That's not my favorite, but ideation and coming up with the business and solving problems, I love.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love travel. Some of my most transformational moments have come through doing short solo travel trips around the world. A friend of mine put together this really cool project called 48-Hour Power Jaunt, where you go visit really cool places for 48 hours. Busy people it's hard to take a week or 2 week vacation. So I went to Dublin, Ireland for 2 days. I went to Barcelona for 2 days. I went to Bogota, Colombia for 2 days. Went to Iceland for a couple days. And these trips, there's just something about leaving your bubble and seeing the world from a fresh perspective and disconnecting from all the people close to you that have expectations from you, where you can just wander a city with no ties, that allows you to just get some clarity.
Pre-COVID, I traveled all the time, and I would typically, because I was single for a lot of that, I'd take extra days and just do what you're talking about, because I'd go work. Then I'd just go explore and see what's out there. What did you like most about Barcelona? Because that became one of my favorite cities in the world. Did you get to go to the cathedral?
I stayed right outside of it. I didn't
Okay.
go in, but I could see it from my hotel room. I hear they're finally finishing it, which is cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been like 100 years or whatever.
Oh, it's
But
almost
yeah,
200.
yeah. And so they're like, hey, we're done
Yeah.
right on time. The thing I loved about Barcelona was the time I wandered. I did some really cool stuff while I was there that was organized, but there were two wanders that I did. One was with a guide. Me and this other entrepreneur, we had a historian that guided us, and we just walked down the Gothic district and Gothic quarter and stopping at each like spot and grabbing tapas at each place. And we're like, dude, don't take us where the tourists go. Just take us where you and your buddies would go. And then that was just a blast. We had so much fun. And then another time I just wandered by myself and I ended up in this old bullfighting arena. And there was like a concert that was going to be there like later on in the day, but they had technically already opened. And there was like live music and no one there. And just me and this other group from like Scandinavia just hanging out in the middle of a bullfighting arena. And I don't know, I just love those little serendipitous moments where You just cross paths and experience, serendipity.
I'm like you. When I go somewhere, I'll check everything out from a perspective back here, but I always want to get where the locals are. I want to find out the places they go and get to really know the culture and the people. And I've had such a great time with it.
Oh, yeah.
And there, I think I ended up in the Picasso Museum. I had to go in that. Cool. I'd say for me, it was the Picasso Museum and then La Familia Sagrada. Yeah. I'd highly encourage you, if you ever go back, go do the tour. It's something that you'll look, it was one of true wonder of the world being able to see it.
And that's the pro and the con of doing a 48-hour trip. You can't do everything. But my thing is, that's okay. You never can. Yeah. I know people that have lived here in Southern California for years and haven't gone to all the museums or all the major landmarks. Ironically, we tend to have more checklist items when we travel than when we're home. But I'm like, but I might not have hit all of them, but I did those 4. And I would always say, hey, you can go to sleep and wake up in your bed tomorrow, or you can go to sleep and wake up in Barcelona. Either way, 8 to 10 hours from now, you could be doing something.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Where's your most romantic place you've been?
Oh man, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I think wandering Central Park is always cool. I feel like that's just your typical cool thing. I was wandering through there with my girlfriend a little while back, and we saw this guy taking pictures on an old vintage Polaroid with actual vintage film. And I thought it was really neat. Some of the most romantic things have actually just been me in those wandering those areas and witnessing other people sometimes. But I think the world is just a romantic place in general if you're looking for the beauty.
Yeah. My wife and I love to go on adventures like that where we just take up and walk around and not have a direction, not even know where we're going.
Yeah.
We did that in some different places. Before we finish up, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would have liked to share with the audience?
Your show is around inspiration. And I think so many times inspiration, we're looking for it from an outside source. And for me, it's always come from movement. It's really hard for me to get inspiration being still. And that's why I think I love travel so much, is in movement, I find clarity of the world, right? In movement, I see what my next steps need to be, but it's really hard to see what my next step is if I'm sitting down. And I think if you look at that from a scriptural perspective, right, it's like you want to be able to see the next step, right? One step enough for me, right? But it's really hard if you're not moving. And so I think that's a personal accountability and ownership side of things, is that you've got to be willing to start walking and the path can appear. And so I think if I can offer a word of wisdom to anybody that may be feeling stuck or stagnant, just start moving. And that can be getting up and going to the gym. It can be booking a trip, going for a car ride, but go somewhere you haven't been before and try to see the world from a different perspective. And it's amazing how things can fall into place.
I want to piggyback on that, Tyler. That is so good, because I've always found that when you get out there, don't know what's next. Sometimes when it seems like the end, you just get out there, something shows up, but you have to make the movement to get out there. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. We are going to have everything on our social media to contact, but if people are listening right now, tell them how to get a hold of you and what the best way to do that would be.
The easiest place is on Instagram at Tyler D. Jorgenson, at that handle. Or you can check out bizninjaradio.com and you'll see all my episodes and can contact us there.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Tyler. I really enjoyed it. And everyone, thank you for being a part of another episode of A Shot of Inspiration. I'm Greg Stevens, your host. If you will, like and subscribe. That helps us get our message out there. And we'll see you next time on A Shot of Inspiration. Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks for listening to this episode of A Shot of Inspiration. If you like this or any of our other episodes, make sure you rate it and share it with a friend. This is Greg Stevens, and we look forward to being with you next time. Until then, be bold, be courageous, and respectfully speak your truth.